Do you go to the print? Normally teach.
Good morning, everybody. I suppose if we're going to be creating this wonderful little video this morning, I just want to thank all of you for helping bring great energy to the room, because it's always fun to give a talk with a welcoming audience. So I really appreciate all of you being here. So this is our little talk on mindfulness as self-care, right? Do I have to look this way? No. Okay, mindfulness as self-care. What is mindfulness? We started talking about that a little bit earlier. What is mindfulness? Mindfulness is waking up and paying attention in this moment. So it's this challenge that we have to really be focused in this moment, because our minds are so busy running around, right? Like little gerbils. I always talk about the gerbils in my brain, right? Paying attention to this moment. So part of what we want to try to do is look at how I need to not pay attention to this, right? Ah, yes, anxiety, there it is. Oh, yeah. So anyway, so part of it is we want to start to pay attention just to the little things, like feeling the fabric of your socks. Those of you who have socks on this morning, feeling the fabric of your socks. Feeling maybe the tightness or the looseness of your shoes. Feeling the sensation of the fabric on your clothing. Maybe even noticing, can you feel your jewelry? Some of you have on watches and jewelry, your glasses on your face. So these are the things that generally we don't pay any attention to, right? So what we're trying to do is to build toward this focus of paying attention on purpose, all right? So this is your practice. Remember, we're practicing. Even the Dalai Lama says all we're doing is practicing, right? He always says, I'm a humble monk. So we are just humble people here today trying to find a way of moving into our lives to bring it to a more fullness, right? So what we're going to do is we also want to bring this idea of observing our life through this lens of non-judgment and curiosity. Now, this is a challenge, because if you think about it, you guys, all of us growing up, it's this idea of, okay, now you have to pay attention, you have to get good grades, we're always striving and pushing forward, right? And we're usually looking at judging if we make a mistake. If you drive when you've been drinking, you get a DUI, right? So we have to judge certain situations. But it's about judging ourselves harshly. Over the years, I've done a lot of work with people with chronic pain. And people with chronic pain generally sit around with an invisible sledgehammer, beating themselves senseless, beating themselves up. I don't know if any of you ever beat yourselves up. I'm sure none of you do, right? But you know that general tendency we have to be judgmental and critical of ourselves. So a part of this challenge of getting mindful is to begin to be aware of how often we do it. And what do? If you guys don't remember anything else I say today, I want you to remember to do what? Breathe. Right? So we're going to practice now. Just breathing. So every time we begin to be aware of some of the ways that we're judgmental and critical of ourselves, your homework, until we meet again, if you will, is to develop this sense of awareness. There I am, I'm doing that behavior again. There it is again, I'm judging and being harsh and critical to myself. And you take a nice breath, and then you try to be a little more patient, if you will, with yourself. So this is the challenge, and to be curious. So for example, one of the things that I'll talk about a little later on in the talk is this idea that, that if we practice this mindfulness every day, I'll get you to start with 10 minutes, but luckily in the long term we prefer 45 minutes. But there's some wonderful studies that talk about 27 minutes, 30 minutes a day. We begin to build new brain cells in our left prefrontal lobe. And the left prefrontal lobe is more associated with serenity and peacefulness and calm. So we're trying to build that muscle in the brain that takes us there. We have so much external stress, right? Of all the, the media, television, Twitter, Facebook, the news, everything's inundating us. So it's about finding a way to kind of get centered. So we're wanting to be curious. So if you're having a very stressful day, for example, and you find yourself reacting, that old knee-jerk reaction, an old pattern of the way you respond to an external stressor. Like you were talking earlier about being in a very stressed career previously, right? So there's a way you respond. So what we're trying to do is notice what are those automatic responses, and over time, through the building of the practice of the mindfulness, you can learn how to pause, push the pause button, and what? Breathe. Thank you. All right, you guys are catching on. And breathe, and then move through your experience, and then respond. But on the days that we all have that we just react and we're not responding, we make jokes about learning to respond skillfully. Okay, I responded, but it wasn't too skillful, so learning how to respond more skillfully. So when you have a day that you didn't respond skillfully and you reacted, instead of taking the sledgehammer, right, and beating yourself up, you bring in this idea of being curious. Gee, I wonder what that was about. I wonder why I responded in that fashion. It's an old pattern. Previously, someone was talking about eating disorders. So a part of what we look at in the mindfulness is to begin to pay attention to what are the triggers, what's the external stimulus, how do we handle stress, and then how do we perhaps not eat a whole bag of potato chips or a box of chocolate, or to have an extra glass of wine at dinner, or whatever we're all working on, right? Because most of us are working on something. Not me, of course, no, just kidding. I'm always working on trying to be respond versus react. And anyone who knows me well knows that I make lots of those mistakes, but I'm continuing to practice kindness toward myself when I react and don't respond well. So that's something that I'm practicing. So it's this idea of bringing this lens of your life to be curious. Gee, I wonder why I did that. I wonder what was happening. I had an experience recently, the holidays, I have these amazing grandchildren, you know, in a week 15 and almost 13. And any of you know anything about teenagers, you know, they love their Grammy, but I'm still a pain in their butt at certain moments, right? So learning how to look at when I react versus respond skillfully, what is that about, and how can I practice being a better human being, taking what I try to teach, but really bring it into practice. So that's the other part of the mindfulness, is that we're asking people to develop their own practice before you begin to teach it to others, okay? And moving right along, let's see if I can do that, yeah? Now, a lot of us growing up, especially people of my generation, taking care of yourself was viewed as selfish, exactly. But mindfulness, self-care, is not selfish, because we can be of greater service to others, those of us who are kind of committed to helping others, is we can be of greater service if we really learn how to take better care of ourselves. It's kind of like if you think when we fly, right? When you fly, what's the first thing they tell us? Take your own oxygen first, right? So self-care is about taking your own oxygen first. So today we have people who are in training to be counselors, and people who are counselors. And we have moms, and we have employees and employers, and we have yoga teachers, and we have all of us here. So it's that idea that we have to take care of ourselves. And it's not generally something we talk a lot about. There's some very interesting literature for those of you who are in the counseling profession about self-care as clinicians. There's a lot written about burnout in all kinds of professions, so we're looking at self-care, and that's what we're doing today. So self-care is a personal health maintenance program. Some of you were talking earlier about yoga. I know many of you also exercise, walk, maybe some of you go to the gym, but it's also about developing this pattern of healthy self-care. Now, one of the things that I'll talk about, and I have a handout for you later, it's about setting your intention. So this idea, self-care is setting the intention of improving or restoring health or treating or preventing disease. I see many people who have life-threatening illnesses, chronic illnesses such as irritable bowel syndrome, chronic pain syndromes, migraine. I'm sure I can't think of all of them right now, but there's a whole variety of illnesses that we all carry around, and we see more and more of how stress impacts health. So all you're going to do is every morning, you ready? Here's what you do every morning. You wake up, and when you're brushing your teeth, because I'm sure you all brush your teeth, right? When you're brushing your teeth, you want to say, take a breath, right? Okay, ready? What we're going to do, take a breath. What is my intention for the day? What can I do today to contribute to my health and to my well-being? Because the weller we are, right, the more we have to offer others. And many of us as caretakers, we cannot forget to take care of ourselves. So again, it's that waking up. Sometimes I'll have a little handout later with a triangle on it, and at the top is setting your intention. What is my intention for the day? And it's about including yourself in your own checklist, right? So over the years, this self-care thing has not been looked upon, I think, well. So it's about now we're recognizing if we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have anything to give to anybody else, right? So it's setting your intention. It's learning to take time for being. So think about that idea, the difference between being and doing. Doing. I see a lot of stressed out, young, amazingly bright professionals who have been pushing since middle school. Middle school, get good grades, go to high school, get good SATs, get good scores, take all these advanced classes, go to college, get a degree, get a career, and by the time people are in their mid-30s to late 30s, early 40s, maybe even late 20s, they're burned out. So it's about stopping and saying, what can I do today? So there's a whole pattern, and in some of the science studies about the brain, we develop these patterns of how we handle our life. So it's about you recognizing, this is the mindfulness piece, it's kind of like recognizing what is your pattern. How are the patterns that you handle stress? How do you build in time for yourself? And it's learning how to be. So even when you're brushing your teeth, that could be maybe part of the informal mindfulness practice. Breathing, brushing, right? Adding time, paying attention, like really feeling the taste of the toothpaste in your mouth, right? Feeling that little, ooh, I like that toothpaste, that little frizzliness, if you will, right? So that would be being. You're being in the moment. When you're putting on your clothing, lots of people like to dress in a particular way, like noticing the texture of like this crunchy scarf, or noticing the texture of your shirts, or noticing things, being as you're getting dressed in the morning, really starting to pay attention on purpose. That's mindfulness, right? So that's learning how to be, not just always doing, racing. The other day, I couldn't find my keys. Now, how many times have you guys not found your keys, right? So I have a new office, and I have special keys because I keep everything locked. Well, I put them somewhere. Now, where did I put them? Why did it happen? I wasn't paying attention on purpose, right? I wasn't focused. So I had to go back and be mindful and retrace my steps. So I left the keys where I left the keys. I left them by my coffee cup on my coffee table in my office. So after I had retraced my steps to the bathroom and to the copier, they were where I left them. And so that's sort of that not being mindful, not paying attention because I was racing to the next thing. And then what do? Here's the unison. Breathe. That's right. So just breathe. So I stood at my filing cabinet and I breathed and I said, okay, Pam, take a breath, stop and be, and then you'll find the keys. And then I did, right? So this is what I'm encouraging you guys to do, is that instead of being this automatic little doer, like one of you was saying earlier about your career, about busy, 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 busy. So it's about slowing down and being here now. Now, there's some new research about 30 minutes daily of this mindfulness practice builds neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to create new brain cells. This is very exciting. If you think about it, it's evolutionary. We are now beginning to understand that we can create new brain cells. For many, many, many generations, the thought was, when your brain cells are dead, you're dead, right? right, sorry, but you know, it's like when your brain cells are gone, you can't regenerate new brain cells. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, I find that really exciting. Okay, I can get new brain cells, and also there's research about, for some of us who are in this aging process, well, we're all in the aging process, you know, but this warding off some of the ideas of Alzheimer's, dementia, it's keeping the mind active and busy, but not like gerbils, but focused. We're looking for focused concentration, right? Okay, so again, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to create new brain cells. And then we'll move to the next slide. Wrong direction, sorry guys. Now, picture yourself with a nice big fat triangle. And you think about, at the top of the triangle is setting your intention. So intention, again, set your intention daily toward a goal of decreasing your stress reactions. Now, first of all, of course, it's important to figure out, well, what are my patterns of my stress reactions, you know? What is this automatic pilot thing that I do? I'm a little nail picker. When I get anxious, I mean, when I was a little kid, I used to, you know, chew my nails down to this disgusting place. And my dad used to say, I'll give you money, I'll buy you a car if you quit, you know, chewing your nails. So now I don't do any of that. But when I'm anxious, I start to pick. And so being aware of, why am I doing that? What is that about? That's like an old yucky habit, right? So maybe none of you have any old yucky habits. But I think for me, that's like a mindless, a little bit of a stress reaction. So really kind of being aware of that, pausing and paying attention. So on our triangle, we have intention at the top. Down on the right side, we have attention. It's what we pay attention to, right? So if we pay attention to too many negative things in the world, what do you think happens? We all get stressed out, right? After 9/11, one of the things that was coming to a lot of us as therapists, professionals, was tell people to stop watching television. Tell them to watch television, you know, 15 minutes a day, because that image of the towers going down was embedded in our minds. I'm sure if we could all replay it in this moment, we could do it like that. So what we're trying to do is also encourage the people that we're around to decrease their external stimulus of those kinds of events that create trauma. Last year after Sandy Hook, the people that I know who work in the schools, or the family members who are sending their kids to the schools, you know, just really having a lot of anxiety and stress reactions to those images in their minds. So we want to try to help in a way. It's not like hiding from the world, but try to decrease the external stimulus that makes you anxious or uncomfortable or unsafe, for example, or creates stress reactions. So it's what you pay attention to. So it's not that you ignore. Over the years, people have said to me, well, you're just wanting me to put my head in the sand. No, I'm trying to help you feel better, right? If I watched all that stuff, I wouldn't be able to sit and be a therapist every day, right? Because I really have to. I really want to be totally present for people when they come in. So it's what you pay attention to. So just begin over maybe the next month or so, is to pay attention every day. What do I pay attention to? And notice what's helpful and maybe what makes you a little stirred up, right? So then what you do is shift your attention. Of course, what do you do? Shift your attention to what? The breath, right? Do it again, breathing. Just focusing on your breathing. You can take a big breath. You can take a quiet breath. You can just remember that breath. When we get stressed, we generally hold our breath. So learning how to practice breathing. A lot of times, if you notice when someone's giving you feedback that you'd really rather not hear, whether it's a coworker, a family member, a fellow grad student, a colleague, a spouse, if they're my grandchildren, if they're telling me things I'd really rather not hear, you hold your breath. We all do it. And so it's while you're hearing, trying to be in the moment and listen, breathe. Because we do have that ability to do both at the same time. So we began to go back to shifting your focus to your breathing. And then it's about attitude. What is my attitude? Now, I work at a treatment facility, so sometimes we talk about people's attitudes suck, okay?